So in this question, we are going to look at Weldment profile creation. So you are going to create 3 profiles and we are going to save it as this inside our Weldment profile library. And so you are going to reuse this Weldment profiles later in other exercises. So let's look at how to do it in SolidWorks. So open a new part file. So we are going to dimension it 40 by 70. And you are going to offset it 3 mm. So now you are going to save it inside the Weldment profile library. So let's save it as a library. You're going to save it as a library feature part. So we are going to save it as this. So I'll just copy. So let's go to our Weldment directory. Okay, so let's create a new folder and then save it inside. We're going to rename this folder as new sizes. Alright, so you realize we are not able to save at this location because we need to obtain administrator permission. So what is happening here is that the files inside this folder are read only. So we cannot make any changes to the Weldment profile library yet. So let's save it on our desktop and then later copy the file into the new sizes folder. So let's save it on our desktop. So you realize after saving an icon here. So this icon here shows this file is actually a library feature part file. So let's go back and then move it inside the Weldment profile directory. So let's go to our directory. So from here we are going to cut the file and I'm going to paste it inside this folder. So you are going to paste. Alright, so you are going to do the same thing for the other 2 profiles, for the rectangle, for the square profile, sorry, and then the circular profile. So we are going to offset it by 3 mm in the opposite direction. and then we are going to save it as this. So we are going to save it on our desktop, and then later move it into the new sizes folder. So you realize the icon here as well. Now one thing is that this particular file has only one configuration. There's no other configuration. We have only one default configuration. So take note of that. So let's create the last one. So we are going to save this under this name. So we'll save it on our desktop. So you see the icon. So from here we are going to cut the files here into our new sizes folder. Alright, so from here you can see we have a new sizes folder which has these three profiles. So 1, 2, and then a circular profile 3. So let's see if we can actually apply this profile to a sketch in SolidWorks. So let's do that by just trying on a random sketch. So I'll just make a random sketch and then apply what we've created to the sketch. So you see we have this warning. Okay, so let's see. So the warning was actually because I created a new folder, or I went through this process already. That is why it gave me that warning. But with the current thing we are doing here, we have this folder here, new sizes. So you see here there's nothing inside. So from here you realize we have the folder here, alright, new sizes, but there's nothing inside the folder, even though we have created some sketches inside this folder. So to solve this, we are either going to create a new folder. So we are going to create a new folder, and then we are going to put these three files inside the folder, or we are either going to create, so we are going to add a new configuration inside this file. So previously we created this file without any other configuration, so there's only one configuration inside the file. So you realize that when you have we realize that with this we have a number of items over here. So with these items we have pipes, we have a rectangular tube. So each file has a number of configurations with different dimensions. So we are also going to do that, or we create a new folder and then we put these three files inside. That is how we can prevent, or that is how we can solve this issue. So let's do that. So I'm going to move these three files inside the folder. So I'll move these three files inside the folder. Alright, so we have here new sizes, we have a new folder, and then we have these files. So let's try it on a different sketch. New sizes was not found. So new sizes, new folder, and then we have these ones. So when you apply it, you realize we have a rectangular profile, a square profile, and then a circular profile. Okay, so that is how you can solve it. Or you are going to create a new configuration. So before you save this file as a library feature path file, you need to create a configuration. So let's try that as well and see if it will work. So I'll just create a random profile. So top plane sketch. So let me just create a random profile. So this is just a profile. So I'll save this as a library feature path file with a new configuration. So I'm going to add a new configuration to this. So let's label it configuration B. So this is B, and then this is our default configuration. So we have two configurations. So let's save it on our desktop. So let's save it as part 14. So you realize there is a small icon over here that shows the file has a profile. So without this icon, that means the file has an empty sketch. So we'll close this. So now let us move this file, this new part that we've created, into into the new sizes folder. So you realize because this has a configuration, it is going to show up in SolidWorks. So let's try that and see. So let's create a new file, a new part file, a random, then we'll make a random sketch on the top plane, and then apply the part 14 profile. So from here you can see we have new sizes, and then we have part 14. So in part 14 we have we have a configuration B, and then there's two configurations. Yes, so that is how you create a Weldment profile in SolidWorks. The reason why we don't have a configuration here and then we later created a folder is because in previous version of SolidWorks, when you open, let's say, the ISO folder, we have folders. So inside these folders we have a number of configurations. So we have a folder named pipe, a folder named rectangular tube. So when you open the folder, that is where we have different configurations of rectangular tubes. Yes, so that is the same thing you are trying to replicate over here. So inside this folder we have a certain folder, and in that folder we have a number of configurations. So it's the same thing, but in newer versions of SolidWorks, from here we have straight away we have a file, and so that file contains a number of configurations, just like we have over here. So when you open this rectangular tube, you're going to realize we have a number of configurations inside. So let's do that and see. So because this is a read-only file, you cannot double click to open, so you need to drag and drop onto SolidWorks. So you see we have a number of configurations in the rectangular tube file. This is an original file. Okay, so that is basically how to add a Weldment profile in a Weldment profile library. Okay.